This guy has a legendary ability. When his eyes turn dark, he can see absolutely everything. But before this power awakened, his life was a total mess. Just 1 week ago, it all seemed like any other day, and then the announcement came that chilled everyone to the bone. In 2 months, the world would succumb to famine, and monsters even more voracious than humans would come to devour everything. In his supposed generosity, God allowed humans to awaken their powers, but even then, almost everyone ended up dead. He's been locked in his room for 3 months now since the outside world collapsed, and the loneliness is becoming unbearable. He's the only living being in the entire building. And worst of all, there's no internet. This is Kim Jae-hyun, and his boredom vanished the exact moment a monster appeared outside his window. The creature looked like it came straight from hell, with the most hideous mouth imaginable. He was on the verge of death and nearly wet himself from fear, but the thing couldn't get in. There was no heroic one-punch man moment here. The reason is his ability. My house, my rules. He is the ultimate hermit. No one crosses that threshold without his permission. This wasn't the first time something like this happened, so he's starting to think he'll never die of a heart attack. That power saved his life, though it also comes with a massive drawback. He can't leave either. He's been trapped since the moment he awakened. Surviving sounds great, right? Well, not when there's no internet, no girlfriend, and not even the slightest bit of fun. The constant message saying the ultimate hermit cannot leave is driving him crazy. He can't do anything at all. He's handsome and rich, yet still single, and now it's getting worse. The food is running out, and the fridge stopped working. Everything will end up rotting. Is he really going to die just because he's too safe? Then something unexpected happens. His ability levels up. He had never stopped to think about what leveling up implied. Maybe that monster that hit the window and died gave him experience. That must be it. Now that corpse is serving as lunch for other creatures down there. Immediately after, the monsters start acting strangely. The one with the horrible mouth dissolves into smoke, and the system announces that a reward has been sent, 2 million in cash to his wallet. He has no idea what that means, but getting electricity back leaves him completely shocked. The scene changes, the light and water have returned like a true miracle. He can finally take a shower and stop smelling terrible. Also, the internet is back. He doesn't curse silently because his house is a mess. While rummaging through his things, he finds a USB drive he didn't remember having. When he checks it, he discovers old family photos. His mother on the day he was born. So beautiful. Himself at 5 years old, adorable and smiling. At 12 with long hair. And at 15, happier than ever. He wishes his parents were there. He doesn't even know if they're still alive. After that moment, he makes a firm decision. He will find them and bring them back with him, no matter what happens. He goes out onto the balcony and notices something new in front of him. A system window for the level 1 shop. It seems suspicious, but he decides to try it anyway. The display shows he has 2,203,239 in cash, as if he were looking at a supermarket balance. Then he tries to open the window to escape, but he's still trapped. There's no way to leave the building. Then, he realizes something crucial. He can level up by hunting the monsters roaming outside. If he takes them out, he'll get stronger. Maybe if his level is high enough, he'll finally be able to leave this place. However, looking at the terrifying, massive flying monsters, he knows he wouldn't stand a chance against them. In fact, one of them died right at his window without him even doing anything. Maybe the goblins below are a better option. They seem much weaker, so he decides to test his idea. He throws a water bottle. It leaves the building. If objects can cross the barrier, but he can't, then he needs a plan. He'll throw something heavier and kill the goblins from up here. Just as he's about to throw a dumbbell, the goblins start calling out to each other and take off running. Those little bastards, he thinks. They can't escape now. He needs to prove his theory. He gathers all his strength and hurls the dumbbell. He misses. His aim is terrible. He only has one left, so now what? He has no idea. Just then, he hears a noise. The damn goblins start screaming, grouping together, and charging toward the building. It's a terrifying scene as they all move in perfect sync. When they ram into the structure, he fears the worst. But maybe it's not so bad. If they get closer, it'll be easier to hit them. Then he opens the shop. His points are still there. He asks the system to list the available items. Just as he thought, the dumbbell has already been analyzed. Now it appears on the list so he can buy more. The price is exactly the same as on the internet. It works just like a virtual store. He orders more dumbbells and buys them. They materialize right in front of him as the cost is deducted from his account. "This is crazy," he shouts, perhaps loud enough for someone on the lower floors to hear. He throws another dumbbell with all his might. This time, luck is on his side as it hits a goblin squarely in the head. The system confirms the kill and awards him EXP. Additionally, 3,345 in cash is added to his account. The others look around in terror, not understanding what on earth just fell from the sky. It's not every day that it starts raining dumbbells. He keeps throwing, but now the goblins are on alert. He misses several shots, so he keeps buying more and tries again and again until he finally manages to hit a few more. As a result, his level keeps rising, and the feeling is incredible. Then, a system notification pops up. The Ultimate Hermit has unlocked Level 1 Storage, an alternate dimension for storing items. To test it out, he puts in a dumbbell. It disappears from his hand and shows up in the storage list. It works perfectly. He takes it out again, and it reappears right in his palm. It's amazing. He can store anything and retrieve it whenever he wants. Then, he makes a ruthless decision. He fills his storage with dozens of dumbbells and releases them outside the building. The scene shifts as a rain of iron falls from the sky. The goblins have nowhere to run and are crushed one after another until they are all dead. He looks at the result, amazed by his own powers. He never imagined they could be used this way. He now realizes he can analyze other objects, even food, and buy them with money from the shop. However, a new problem immediately arises. His cash is limited. To make matters worse, the electricity bill continues to eat away at his savings, and since he wiped out the goblins with those weights, no monsters have come near the apartment. Without monsters, there's no money or experience. If nothing comes to him, he's in trouble. He needs to find another way to kill monsters. While he brainstorms a solution, something appears in the sky. He remembers it instantly. It's the same thing that attacked him before. This is bad. It's a calican, a high-level monster. He runs to the kitchen, ties shiny spoons to a chair, and hangs it outside to reflect the light. It worked. The monster notices it and flies straight toward the building, ready to attack with its disgusting mouth. But this time, he isn't afraid. The barrier is still active, and the creature can't get through. If this continues, it will end up killing itself just like the last one, which means more EXP for him. However, this one is smarter. It realizes it can't get in and flies upward, but he's not letting it get away. It didn't actually leave, though. Immediately after, it lands on the roof. When he peeks out to look, good heavens, he almost wets himself again. The monster pecks at a spot violently, but the barrier is absolute. Nothing enters without the permission of the ultimate hermit. He thinks for a second, then opens the shop. If dumbbells could kill goblins, then what could take down such a massive monster? The beast continues pecking tirelessly when an idea crosses his mind. He spends his cash on several bottles of oil. Perfect. He pours the oil into pots and starts heating it. If boiling oil can kill anything, it's time to find out. Next, he wraps paper around some sticks and saves the burning hot oil in his storage. He lights one of the sticks. It's time for his ultimate trick. The monster is still attacking the barrier, so he commands the oil to fall. From the sky, the storage opens right over the creature, and the boiling oil pours down in streams. The monster screeches. Without wasting a second, he threw the lit stick. The oil ignited instantly. Flames were everywhere. It worked. Yes, that beast was nothing more than fried chicken now. It fell to the floor engulfed in fire. The smell was unbearable, and the sight was even worse. When it finally died, the system appeared. Calican defeated, EXP gained, and what about his cash? He now had 9,347,487. The Supreme Hermit was richer than ever, but then something unexpected happened. He unlocked a requirement and his territory expanded. It wasn't just his apartment anymore, but the entire building, and he also gained a new skill. At first it hurt and his vision failed for a moment, but then he could see every corner of the building, even the people downstairs. He saw a family sitting in their living room, sad and hungry. What on earth? His eyes felt strange, and he wondered who they were. After a few seconds, the sensation vanished. His eyes returned to normal, and the system revealed the information. A 30-year-old man, a woman of the same age, and 2 daughters, aged 3 and 6. They were all eligible to become citizens of his territory. The warning was clear. Anyone who didn't obtain citizenship would be expelled. If he did nothing, they would be forced out and the monsters would finish them off. Without wasting time, he granted them citizenship and checked the skill. Just as he imagined, it was Supreme Eyes Level 1. Now he could see everything within his territory. Nothing escaped his perception. In the system, the population list appeared. 4 citizens out of a total of 600 available slots. 600 was absurd. They wouldn't even fit in his apartment, much less the entire building. Then he discovered something even more surprising. Citizens shared their power and experience. Every battle they fought, every level they gained, would grant him a portion of that progress. Perfect. He would get stronger much faster. Also, time-limited missions had just been unlocked, and failing meant punishment. The first mission, kill a goblin within 68 hours. The punishment, losing his manhood. In other words, he might as well be dead. The system asked if he accepted. He hesitated, and for now, he decided to decline. Immediately after, he activated Supreme Eyes again. The world went dark, and his vision descended to the family below. The scene shifted to them. The youngest girl was asking her father what they would do. There was no food left, and hunger was consuming the 2 sisters. The man was heartbroken to see them like that. But it was hell outside. Going out could mean never coming back. Even so, he had to try. He told his wife he would go look for food. She understood what that decision meant. If he stayed, they would die, and if he left, maybe they would all die, but at least there was a chance. He prepared to leave, saying goodbye as if it were the last time. The girls cried, begging him not to go. Just as he was about to open the door, the handle turned on its own. Everyone froze in place. They thought it was monsters. The door opened slowly, and light flooded into the room. The father grabbed a weapon, ready to fight. However, it wasn't a monster. A voice cried out for mercy, and then he saw him standing there. "I've come to help," he said. "I have water and food. You must be hungry." The man was in total shock. How could someone appear and offer a helping hand in the middle of this disaster? The father couldn't refuse the offer. It was the only way to save his daughters. Finally, he invited him inside. The scene changes, and we see the two children of the burly Choi Hyung-jung hiding behind their father, eyeing Jae-hoon with deep suspicion. Neither of them trust him one bit. Meanwhile, Hyung-jung, his wife, and the little ones sit around the table. Jae-hoon peels oranges, trying to ease the heavy tension in the air. He watches them silently, wondering if his arrival was too much for them to handle. As he looks around the room, Jae-hoon notices it's completely bare. There's no food, no water, and no electricity. The curtains are tightly shut to avoid attracting monsters, and he nods to himself, knowing it was a smart move. Wanting to help more, he looks up at the ceiling lamp. His eyes begin to glow with an intense blue light, and with a simple blink, light floods the room. The burly man stares in disbelief. Before the man can process what happened, Jae-hoon slides a bottle of water across the table and tells him to give it to the children first. The little ones drink as if they had been wandering through a desert for months. Jae-hoon watches them closely with a faint smile. The youngest, Seo Yeon, almost chokes because she's so thirsty. Seeing this, Jae-hoon quickly offers her an orange. She hesitates for a second, but eventually accepts it. The sweet citrus scent fills the air immediately, making her mouth water. The girl passes it to her mother, who carefully feeds her. As soon as she takes the first bite, her eyes light up with pure joy. The orange is so sweet and juicy that it practically melts in her mouth, and her happiness is obvious. Seeing her sister's reaction, Na-yeon asks for a piece too. Hyung-jung's wife agrees, and soon the sound of children's laughter fills the room. As Jae-hoon watches them, a system notification pops up. The family's trust in him has increased significantly. Seo Yeon's trust level has reached 57, making her eligible to become a vessel. Jae-hoon is secretly stunned. He doesn't fully understand what being a vessel implies yet, but one thing is clear, he has no intention of turning a 3-year-old girl into one. He then wonders how he can raise the father's trust to 50, considering it's currently only at 31. Lost in his thoughts, he barely notices when the large man suddenly calls out to thank him from the bottom of his heart. He wants to know how he can repay such kindness. Jae-hoon calmly responds and suggests they step out into the hallway to talk more privately. The scene then shifts, and both of them are out in the hallway. Jae-hoon asks him if he received the system notification about citizenship. The man nods. Immediately after, Jae-hoon asks if he noticed anything strange. The man explains that, for a moment, everyone became completely frozen. Hearing this, Jae-hoon realizes something crucial. If he hadn't granted them citizenship in time, they would have been teleported out of the building. The revelation makes his expression harden, becoming serious and focused. With a firm and confident voice, Jae-hoon assures him that if he decides to help, he will provide food, water, shelter, and above all, protection. His safety will be guaranteed. Surprised, the man asks how that could even be possible. Jae-hoon doesn't offer any details, simply stating that if he wants food and safety, he'll have to trust him without asking questions, promising he'll never ask for anything life-threatening. The man closes his eyes and lets his instinct guide him. Despite everything, he feels Jae-hoon isn't a bad person, so he asks what he wants in return since nothing in this world is free. Jae-hoon calmly replies that he's not looking for anything material, just for the man to complete a small task. Relieved, the man even calls him Brother Jae. Jae-hoon responds with a slight smile, accepting the gesture. Then, changing the subject, Jae-hoon asks how much the golf club he was carrying cost. He realizes it would be too expensive to keep in his shop, so he suggests leaving that conversation for later. Next, he wants to know when the apocalypse began. The man remembers it was during a weekend when a horde of goblins attacked. Jae-hoon connects the facts and remembers that day when he was resting in his room like a total shut-in. He concludes that those who stayed home managed to survive the first wave of destruction. He reflects on the goblins and understands that citizenship will be a decisive factor in staying alive. Finally, Jae-hoon gives the man a clear order. Find survivors and bring them to this building. Later, the scene changes to show Jae-hoon lying comfortably on the sofa. He keeps his eyes fixed on the system notification, watching as the chubby guy's trust grows slowly but steadily. The indicator has already reached level 40, though Jae-hoon is eager to see it hit 50 soon. Meanwhile, he gets lost in his thoughts and wonders when he'll be able to leave the barrier to look for his family. He also wonders if granting citizenship to others could make that reunion easier. Suddenly, a loud noise makes him jump. The sound breaks the silence and he recognizes it instantly. It's the mixed groan of a zombie and a human. Immediately, Jae-hoon runs to the window and looks out. His pupils dilate as he discovers 6 or 7 people facing off against a horde of goblins. He quickly concludes they won't survive. They are too far from his building for him to help with his summoning skill. Panic begins to take hold of him. However, he's shocked when a teenager throws a baseball with incredible strength and takes out a goblin on the spot. Another girl wearing a purple tracksuit fires 2 arrows simultaneously and knocks down 2 more. Finally, a third teenager swings his bat and smashes a goblin's head with brutal ease. The remaining goblins don't hesitate and flee to save their skins. Elsewhere, a sudden crash startles the girl in the purple tracksuit. As she looks closer, she finds a pack of ramen on the ground and wonders how it got there. When she looks up, she spots a dark shadow at the top of the building. It's Jae-hoon, trying to get their attention so they'll come inside. As he continues to watch the group, someone knocks on his door. It's the chubby guy. Jae-hoon tells him to come inside, but the system immediately blocks him. A notification pops up, informing him that the boy does not have permission to enter. The revelation leaves him puzzled. It's clear that no one can access his room, even with his approval. Then a question occurs to him, could a vessel enter? However, he decides to set that thought aside for now. Next, Jae-joon leaves the room and orders the boy to gather any cheap items in the house that could serve as weapons. After making sure everything is ready, he immediately opens the Supreme Recluse shop and summons 5 packs of ramen and 5 bottles of water. In seconds, the items materialize in front of the chubby boy, who is left speechless, seeing Jae-joon's powers up close for the first time. With absolute calm, Jae-joon packs everything into a box and hands it to him, explaining that his next mission is to take it outside the building. Worry shows on the boy's face as he reminds him that many goblins are lurking outside. Jae-joon reassures him, saying he already cleared out all the ones hanging around nearby. Though he hesitates, the boy eventually trusts him. Jae-joon adds that food is a treasure in the outside world and reveals his master plan, feeding the hunters so they'll recognize him as their king and follow him without question. He smirks, knowing he is applying the slave management technique. According to this method, anyone who receives food and water will eventually become his servant. The chubby boy places absolute faith in him and agrees. Then Jae-joon creates a new mission in the system, and the boy accepts it enthusiastically, excited by the chance to gain experience. He heads down the stairs carrying the box. He's nervous, but he trusts Jae-joon. He tightly grips a golf club in his hands. Finally, he steps out through the building's exit. Fear immediately shakes him, accompanied by a single thought: drop the box and run. As he leans down to set it down, he hears approaching footsteps. He freezes, trembling from head to toe. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots a dark shadow. Panic consumes him, and his mind pictures a bloodthirsty goblin. He tries to run back into the building, but he slips and the box slides away. Unable to move from terror, he lies there, with a flushed face and ragged breathing. The footsteps ring out closer and closer. The chubby boy begs for mercy, pleading with the goblins he thinks are right on top of him. When he finally gathers the courage to open his eyes, he is stunned. There is no goblin. Instead, standing before him is a group of teenagers and students, all watching him with a mix of surprise and confusion. After that, the scene shifts, and the system alerts Jae-joon that the people he saw outside are now trying to enter the building. He catches on instantly and activates the Supreme Recluse's omniscient eyes. Thanks to that vision, he can clearly see the teenagers stationed in front of the door. A girl in a purple tracksuit points out that this is the same apartment where some weird guy threw ramen noodles. Beside her, a boy with a baseball bat mutters that anyone wasting ramen like that must have plenty of food to spare. Without wasting time, Jae-joon deactivates the skill and tries to add them as citizens. However, the system interrupts with a notification. He can offer them citizenship, but they can also refuse it. The idea irritates him, as a no would ruin his plans. He needs a strategy that guarantees they say yes. Just then, he receives a call from the chubby guy through the camera system. An idea sparks in his mind. He tells him to wait a moment and updates his mission: serve food to the 6 guests. The chubby man agrees immediately. He approaches the young people waiting outside the barrier and tells them that if they accept Jae-hoon's offer, everything will be free. The offer works instantly, and they accept without a second thought. Jae-hoon opens the barrier and lets them in. As soon as they cross, the system informs him that his citizen count has risen by 10%, and the experience and money they generate will also increase by that percentage. It is a very decent bonus. Jae-hoon watches them closely and checks their profiles. The highest level is Ha Dong-hyun, the one who threw the baseball. His skill, baseball throw, is rank D, allowing him to throw objects with 10 times more force. Jae-hoon instantly recognizes how dangerous that ability is, and concludes that they are all metahumans. He adjusts the XP distribution rate to 70%. The teenagers receive the majority, while he keeps 30%. Satisfied, he understands that if he keeps recruiting citizens, they will end up being his automatic hunting team, strengthening him and filling his pockets without effort. The idea reminds him of playing Age of Empires. His next move must be to earn the newcomer's trust, but to his surprise, that trust is already rising. Confused but curious, he decides to just sit back and watch. The scene shifts to the chubby guy leading the teenagers to his apartment. Yoon-young's wife is confused at the sight of the group, but the man apologizes and explains they need food. She agrees to help without hesitation. Through his omniscient eyes, Jae-hoon watches the scene with satisfaction. After a while, Dong-hyun asks the chubby man what kind of person Jae-hoon is. The man admits he knows little, only that he's a strange but kind neighbor. Thanks to him, they now have electricity, water, and food. The explanation makes Dong-hyun uneasy. His gaze falls on the pack of ramen they received. In his mind, Jae-hoon must be an extremely powerful and dangerous metahuman. He decides he will do whatever it takes to impress him. His trust in Jae-hoon skyrockets, as upsetting someone like that is not an option. Meanwhile, the chubby man asks the 2 girls in Dong-hyun's group if they want to bathe while the food is being prepared. The mere mention of a bath makes their eyes light up. The idea of a shower excites them. Dong-hyun is also surprised and realizes that the water system must be working. The man confirms it, saying there's even hot water, all thanks to Jae-hoon's skills. At this point, Jae-hoon seems like an electrician, plumber, and water provider all at once. One of the girls jokes that he must be the god of all trades. The talk continues as a teenager with glasses approaches Donghyun and asks if he thinks he's stronger than Jaehyun. Donghyun doesn't mince words. With skills like those, it would be impossible to beat him. Suddenly, Deoksu grabs his shoulder and suggests something absurd. Together, they could beat up Jaehyun. His logic is as simple as it is twisted. If they subdue him, he will give them all the food. The reaction from Donghyun is immediate. Visibly annoyed, he calls him a lunatic and orders him not to do anything stupid. In the end, the group agrees that the most sensible thing is to impress Jaehyun. The scene then shifts to another member of the group, Byung-ho, a shy boy. Dongjeon approaches him and apologizes, explaining that if he hadn't invited him to that party just hours before the apocalypse, maybe Byung-ho could have saved his family. The young man replies that it wasn't his fault, but Dongjeon promises that after they eat, they will plan a rescue for his grandmother. Even so, Byung-ho is still filled with anguish. He fears it might be too late and that the goblins have already devoured her. The atmosphere becomes tense as they sense someone approaching. It could be a monster, and in a way it is. The monster's name is Jae-yoon. He appears carrying 2 black bags. At that moment, Dongjeon realizes that he is the only one capable of solving all their problems. Jae-yoon enters with a deadly serious expression, scans the group, and without hesitation declares with absolute confidence that he will help them. Shortly after, everyone takes a seat, though the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. Hyunjung's wife apologizes for how small her house is, and Dongjeon tries to reassure her, saying it was their fault for showing up unannounced. Just then, the burly man appears with the food still hot and begins to serve it. The group of young people is stunned when they see the plates, as it has been a long time since they saw food, let alone clean, hot food. Hyunjung's wife grows increasingly uneasy, worried that the guests might not like the menu. Rice, fried egg, kimchi, and warm water. Still, everything looks appetizing, and the table is full. One of the girls takes a small piece of egg to taste it. As soon as she bites into it, she freezes in surprise, her mouth waters, and she declares it's delicious and that she loves it. Hearing her, the wife sighs in relief and smiles, commenting that the real credit goes to Jaehyun's ingredients, because without them, the meal wouldn't have been so good, and she didn't even have supplies for herself. At that moment, a system notification appears for him, informing him that the wife's trust level has reached 50. This makes him happy, especially since her trust is growing faster than the burly man's. Then, everyone begins to eat together. Their faces light up as if they haven't tasted anything so savory in forever, and they are truly enjoying it. One of the girls comments that the egg rolls are excellent, like something from a restaurant, and that in the middle of an apocalypse, such a meal is like a gift from heaven. Another, moved by curiosity, asks if they are the same rolls served in Japanese restaurants. Seeing them so happy, the wife catches their joy and encourages them to keep eating. Just then, her younger daughter approaches with a sad expression and says she also wants to try those delicious egg rolls. The mother strokes her forehead and promises to make more once the guests leave. However, the little girl isn't satisfied and looks ready to cry. Then, one of the girls calls the child over and asks if she wants to share her egg roll. The little girl's face lights up instantly, and she runs over to sit by her side. The young woman, touched by Seo-jung's happiness, uses her chopsticks to feed her. After tasting it, Seo-jung bursts with joy. While everyone is enjoying themselves, Jaehyun notices the burly man and his wife standing nearby, watching this scene with satisfied smiles. Noticing this, he invites them to sit down and eat with them. Though they are surprised at first, they end up joining the group and sharing the meal. Later that evening, while they continue to eat, Jaehyun feels a slight sadness. Seeing them share like this reminds him of how long it's been since he felt such warmth. He thinks of his parents and wishes they were safe. With that, the scene comes to an end. Afterward, Seo-yeon goes to her mother and tells her she is very sleepy. The woman carried the child to bed, followed by the oldest daughter, who also went to get some rest. The scene then shifts as it was time for a serious talk. Jae-yoon stated they needed to continue their discussion. He turned to Dong-yeon and asked why they couldn't just go to Byung-ho's grandmother's house if it was so close. Dong-yeon tensed up and explained that the problem was the goblins. Upon hearing this, Jae-yoon's expression hardened. Dong-yeon detailed that the building's underground parking lot was a perfect hiding spot, so the goblins had turned it into their base. He estimated there were at least several thousand of them, and without defeating them, reaching the grandmother's house was impossible. This worried Jae-yoon, who thought to himself that the Supreme Hermit's skill only covers up to the 30th floor. That was why the goblins could enter through the basement outside his barrier, and why he hadn't seen any. They were all in the basement. Dong-yeon continued explaining that all the building's entrances connected to that parking lot, which was why they didn't dare leave. The atmosphere grew even heavier. After reflecting for a moment, Jae-hyun remembered there were side paths and small passages that worked as shortcuts to the parking lot. Dong-hyun nodded. That had been his initial plan for escaping. However, something even more terrifying than the goblins had stopped him. Hearing that sent a shiver down Jae-hyun's spine. With a grim expression, Dong-hyun described the creature. It looked like a mix between a wolf and a bear. It was as large as a bear and as fierce as a bloodthirsty wolf. He recalled seeing the beast take on a huge group of goblins alone. They only managed to flee because the creature was busy killing and devouring them. Jae-yoon's worry intensified. Dongyan added that they didn't know exactly what it was because the place was too dark, but it looked like a shadow beast. Jae-yoon commented that they couldn't avoid the problem forever. Still frightened, Dongyan replied that they had their limits, otherwise they would have fought the goblins already. Intrigued, Jae-hyun asked what those limits were. Hyerin, sitting nearby, answered that their weapons were nearly destroyed. They used bows and threw baseballs, but sooner or later, they would run out of ammunition. To Jae-hyun, that didn't seem like a huge obstacle. He reassured them he could fix it and asked to see the bows and balls. When they showed them to him, he inspected them and immediately added the baseball to his system inventory. When he tried to register the bow, a message appeared. He needed to pay 1,530,000 won to add the high-quality compound bow. Without hesitating, he made the payment and integrated it into his system. As an unlimited supply of arrows and balls was added to his shop, he asked if everyone knew how to use bows. Silence was the only response. Immediately after, with a serious expression, Jae-hyun bought 5 bow and arrow kits from the system. In a matter of seconds, the weapons appeared on the table. In a casual tone, he told them that even if they didn't know how to use them yet, they should take the chance to practice. He handed them the bows and encouraged them to start right away. At that moment, he received another notification. Some trust levels had increased. Surprise was mixed with satisfaction. At the same time, a sense of hope began to spread among the group. They started to believe that, with Jae-hyun's help, they really could save Byung-ho's grandmother. Their trust in him continued to grow. Dong-yeon was especially happy. With these weapons, their hunting efficiency would improve greatly. Another person commented they would no longer have to risk their lives to recover arrows. The general mood became more optimistic and expectant. Suddenly, Jae-hyun took on a serious tone and addressed everyone. Before moving forward, they had to thin out the goblin numbers. Dong-yeon also turned serious and asked when they would start hunting. Jae-hyun replied without hesitation, they would start tomorrow. He assured them that the next day, they would save Byung-ho's grandmother. He tried to give them courage, and at the sound of his promise, Byung-ho's face lit up. Dong-yeon then asked how they planned to achieve it. Jae-han smiled confidently. They would use a decoy strategy. Then Jae-han took the floor and calmly laid out his strategy. When he finished, one look at the others was enough to see how focused they were. No one said anything, but they were all wondering the same thing. Would the bait tactic be a brilliant success or a total failure? Still, they clung to the hope that it would work. Suddenly, a system window appeared in front of him, reporting that the sturdy boy had completed the mission and received a reward of 30,000 won. The notification made him jump. After all, the money had come directly out of his own account. Then he understood. As long as he had funds, he could level up his citizens. From that moment on, he decided that unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't spend a single one. Before he could gather his thoughts, another window appeared. Hyun-jung's trust level had increased to 50 points, unlocking his loyalty and meeting all the requirements to register him as a vassal. Jae-yoon was stunned by the news. At that moment, something strange began to manifest in Hyun-jun's body. Confused, he couldn't understand what was happening or why that sensation was racing through every muscle. Immediately after, the system confirmed the registration was successful. As a reward, Jae-yoon obtained the Summon Vassal skill, which allowed him to bring his servant back home 2 hours after the initial summoning. From then on, Hyun-jung officially became Jae-yoon's first vassal and received the title of first servant. At the same time, Jae-yoon gained strength comparable to a gorilla, an ability that was also granted to the burly man. Another notification clarified that all AXP and gold the man earned while hunting would be doubled. Additionally, thanks to the Supreme Recluse's omniscient eyes, Jae-yoon could summon him within 5 meters of his home. All that information hit him like an avalanche. He then noticed a small plus button on the system window and pressed it. A message appeared asking if he wanted to spend 1 million won to increase his vassal's level. The price left him frozen. He slumped into his seat, holding his head in frustration, thinking, this is a damn slot machine. Seeing him like that, the burly man's wife approached to ask if something was wrong. Jae-yoon shook his head slightly and replied that it was nothing. He then decided they would stop referring to the man as the burly guy and use his real name instead. He then asked Hyun-jun how he was feeling. The response came with total enthusiasm. An overwhelming force was racing through his body. He was sure he could throw a punch and put a hole in the wall. After a brief pause, he wanted to know if Jae-yoon had done something to his body. Jae-yoon nodded, and Hyun-jun continued, explaining that he felt 10 years younger and that a mysterious aura was flowing inside him. Those words brought a satisfied smile to Jae-yoon's face. He handed him a bow and asked him to join the mission. Hyun-jun accepted it, even though his hands were shaking and his nervousness was obvious. For his part, Jae-yoon reflected, citizens receive an extra 10% XP, but vassals gain double. That could only mean one thing. The burly man would end up even more like a gorilla, and his progress would be massive. Out loud, he ordered him to eliminate as many monsters as possible. Although Hyun-jung was terrified and nearly in tears, he accepted the task. Jae-yoon couldn't hide his joy, and with a smile assured him that he had full confidence in him. The scene then shifts to the start of the mission. The group inspects the first floor of the apartment building with extreme caution. As they move forward, Deok-soo tells Dong-jan that checking this floor might be unnecessary. The windows are smashed and everything looks abandoned, as if there are no survivors left. Dongjon doesn't agree. He insists on checking every corner and remembers Jae-yoon's orders. They are a rescue team and must save as many people as possible. Their main objective is to find survivors and escort them safely to the 30th floor. After stopping for a moment, Dongjon explains the core of the mission. They need to lure a large number of goblins to the building and then exterminate them. For the plan to work, they must gather the largest number of survivors. He asks if everyone understands. The team responds with determination, which boosts their spirits. Meanwhile, Deok-soo grips his iron mace, ready to crush some monsters. Dongjon orders them to start with room 101 and warns them to stay alert, as goblins could appear at any moment. The group enters units 101 and 102, where an unbearable smell hangs in the air. The interior is covered in bloodstains, and everything indicates that someone was dragged across the floor before being killed. The scene is horrific, with bodies scattered, broken windows, and blood splattered on the walls. Some bodies are torn in half, and several women lie there, victims of the goblins' cruelty before they died. The sight is too much for the women in the group, who immediately begin to vomit. Shocked, everyone looks at Dongjon, who, although dejected, encourages them to keep going. After searching the first floor without finding any survivors, discouragement begins to take hold of the team. Still, Dongjon leads them to the second floor. Nothing improves. There are more bodies, more blood, and destruction that rattles their nerves even further. Determined not to give up, they head to the third floor. There, Dongjon knocks on a door and shouts, asking if anyone is left alive. Full of hope, they begin to knock on one door after another, but silence is the only response. With every passing second, the morale of Dongjon begins to crack, though he forces himself to push on and decides to check the fourth basement level. The group heads there, and Dongjon knocks on another door, asking again if anyone is inside. He is on the verge of giving up, silently praying to find even just one person. This time, against all odds, someone responds. A man cautiously opens the door and asks if they are really a rescue team. The mere sight of a survivor fills Dongjon with joy. He assures him they've come to save them. The man, exhausted but still suspicious, asks for some water. They hand over a bottle, and the man's surprise is obvious. He had assumed they were intruders coming to hurt or rob him, but Dongyon tries to calm him down, repeating that they're just there to help. He explains that they're also residents of the building and invites him to join the group. Still skeptical, the man opens the door a bit further, revealing two other people inside. He apologizes for his paranoia, introduces himself as Hong Jong-soo, and agrees to go with them. Visible relieved, Dongyan shakes his hand and introduces himself as well. He then orders two of his companions to escort Jong-soo to the 30th floor and then return to continue the mission. Hearing about the 30th floor makes Jong-soo uneasy. "We're not leaving the building?" he asks. At that moment, his young son chimes in, reminding him that someone was supposed to save them. Surprisingly calm, the boy imagines a helicopter is waiting for them on the roof, clearly having watched too many zombie movies. Hiren clarifies that's not exactly the case, but she promises hot food and a bath if they come along. The mere mention of a bath excites Jong-soo's daughter, who encourages her father to go with the team and stop worrying so much. Despite his initial doubts, Jong-soo eventually agrees. One by one, more survivors begin to join the group, adding to the rescue effort. Later on, while the operation continues, Jae-hyun receives a new system notification. The number of citizens has reached 40, and the EXP and gold they generate has increased by 90%. The scene then shifts as Jae-hyun makes a quick decision. The heavy-set guy's apartment will serve as a temporary shelter for the children and the elderly, while the rest will have to stay out in the hallways. Dong-yeon approaches him to report that they've only managed to rescue 40 people so far. Jae-hyun frowns and asks if that's really everyone left in the building. Dong-yeon sadly explains that anyone who left their room was brutally killed. They search down to the 29th floor, but many never even made it out of their homes. Even so, Jae-hyun thinks they've done a good job. Although the shelter is nearly at capacity, that number will have to do for now. Activating his Supreme Recluse's omniscient eyes, Jae-hyun watches the group's every move. First he sees Byung-ho lifting a chair, then the heavy-set guy and several others carrying a huge water jug with the women. Finally, he spots Dong-yeon busy with his tasks. They've almost finished all the preparations he ordered. With a smirk, Jae-hyun tells Dong-yeon they can move on to Phase 2, the Goblin House. Immediately after, Dong-yeon gathers everyone and details the mission, luring out the goblins hiding underground. They'll start with the first basement level, B1. They'll split into two teams to lure and eliminate them, and once finished, they'll head down to B2 to clear it as well. The guy with glasses, visibly nervous, speaks up. "What if there are more goblins than we expect? We'll be trapped on the first floor. What happens if something goes wrong while we're moving the bodies?" Before Dong-yeon can answer, Hiren, bow in hand, confidently declares she'll kill every goblin to prevent any disasters. She reassures the guy, reminding him that as his older sister figure, she'll make sure everyone stays safe. Dong-yeon backs her up, noting they have plenty of arrows now, unlike before. The confidence in his voice finally convinces the worried member. In the next moment, a sudden noise cuts through the air. Everyone tenses up and turns around only to find 3 goblins standing before them. Hieron wastes no time and fires. Piercing through 2 of the creatures, Deoksu finishes off the last one, crushing its head with his club like a watermelon. In a matter of seconds, all 3 lie dead. After the brief fight, the guy with glasses jokes with Deoksu, asking why he brought a bow if he was just going to use the club. Deoksu replies that swinging the club just feels natural, though he admits he feels a bit stronger than before. What he doesn't know is that this improvement comes from the club Jae-hyun reinforced earlier. Before he can say anything else, Hieron points to the corpses. To everyone's surprise, they begin to vanish. Jae-hyun was collecting the loot. Byung-ho stands there speechless, wondering if this is another one of his skills. Without letting himself get distracted, Dong-yeon orders the group to move toward B1. The group follows him as Byung-ho's faith in Jae-hyun continues to grow. He starts to believe he really can save his grandmother. Meanwhile, a system notification appears before Jae-hyun, informing him that the group's trust has increased. He drinks some water while checking the messages, thinking that although it wasn't his plan, he's ended up looking after them like a guardian. In a way, he feels like an older brother. Then, another notification pops up. Byung-ho has reached a trust level of 50, meeting all the requirements to become his vassal. The news takes him by surprise. He didn't expect such rapid growth. He concludes that Byung-ho must truly believe he can save his grandmother. He also understands that the more vassals he has, the faster his own progress will be. When he checks Byung-ho's loyalty, he's stunned to see it at 88, a bond even stronger than that of a mother and child. After calming down, he decides to accept the good fortune and confirms it. He accepts him as his vassal, silently promising to do everything he can to save the boy's grandmother. As soon as the confirmation is complete, Byung-ho's body begins to glow in the middle of the battle against the goblins. Confused, he doesn't understand what's happening. The light is so intense that it scares both his companions and the monsters themselves, forcing them to back away. Nervous, Dong-hyun admits he doesn't understand the situation and orders a retreat. The goblins are blinded and can't see, so the group takes the opportunity to run. As they flee, Dong-hyun and Hyeryong fire arrows that hit the goblins' foreheads, killing them instantly. With a stern expression, Hyeryong activates her skill and fires multiple arrows at once, taking down several enemies. However, the numbers are overwhelming, and they just keep coming. When the goblins get dangerously close, Byung-ho panics and shouts that even the ones from B2 seem to have moved up to B1. No one expected this. Everything indicates these creatures can communicate telepathically. The group reaches the exit door. Dong-hyun tries to close it, but several green hands squeeze through the opening. Everyone rushes to help, but the pressure from the other side is brutal. There are too many goblins. Just as they are about to break in, more people join in to push, but it's not enough. One of the goblins keeps the door open with pure strength while others pile up behind it, making everything worse. In that critical moment, the chubby boy activates his gorilla strength skill and manages to close the door on his own. With a superhuman effort, he tells himself he must stop them there no matter what. Dong-hyun shouts to him that everyone is safe and to get back immediately. The boy tries to rejoin the group, but the goblins break the door down and tackle him. Desperate, he tells them to go on without him. Dong-hyun hesitates, unable to decide, but then Deoksu rushes in, hits a goblin with his club, and tries to rescue him. However, another creature grabs the chubby boy's leg and pins him down. In the middle of the chaos, a goblin with a greedy look watches them, its expression making it clear how hungry it is for what it considers a juicy piece of meat. But just as the creatures are about to pounce, the chubby boy vanishes into thin air. Deoksu is left frozen, not understanding what on earth just happened. The goblins advance toward him, and one leaps to attack, but Deoksu crushes it with his club and sends it flying. Without wasting time, he runs toward his companions, dodging blows with agility. The team covers him by firing arrows, clearing enough space for him to escape unharmed. The retreat continues as everyone struggles not to be overrun by the relentless goblin horde. In the dead of night, under the faint glow of the moon, the entire building remained in absolute silence. However, in the basement, a terrifying beast was devouring goblins, one after another, tearing their bodies apart, crushing and chewing them like they were candy. It finished off every last one effortlessly, and still enraged, looked up at the building, with only one thought, to kill everyone inside, driven by an insatiable hunger and a constant need to devour and evolve. Elsewhere, the chubby boy hit the ground with a thud, convinced he wouldn't survive the day. He was sure the goblins would make him their dinner, yet something felt off. He didn't understand where he was. Standing before him was Jae-hyun, who kindly asked how he was feeling. The boy was still shocked and worried, but Jae-hyun offered a friendly smile while helping him to his feet. Jae-hyun was satisfied to have made him his vassal as it allowed him to summon him there. However, the boy's leg was in bad shape, as a scratch from a goblin wouldn't stop bleeding. Still unable to process what had happened, he barely reacted when Jae-hyun noticed the deep cut. He tried to brush it off, claiming it was nothing and would heal on its own, but Jae-hyun saw that he couldn't even move his leg and realized it was serious. He told him to stay there and ran off toward his room. As soon as he arrived, he grabbed his first aid kit, remembering the times his mother had taught him how to treat wounds in emergencies. He had an endless supply of antiseptic pills and medical supplies, practically having access to every resource imaginable. Even so, his Supreme Recluse inventory only had 40 slots, so he had to manage them carefully. After thinking for a moment, he came up with an idea. He put all the medicine inside the first aid kit and then stored the kit in a single inventory slot. A brilliant solution. He then wondered if storing a room full of medicine or a box full of supplies would allow him to duplicate them. That thought changed everything. Once prepared, he returned to the boy's side, took out the first aid kit, and asked to see his leg. The boy reluctantly obeyed, blood still flowing steadily from the wound. While cleaning it, Jae-hyun warned him that the situation was serious. If it got infected, he could even lose the leg. The boy squirmed in pain during the treatment. Suddenly, a system notification appeared, indicating that the boy's trust in Jae-hyun had increased drastically. Finally, the treatment was finished, and Jae-hyun ordered him to go to his room and rest. Still in pain but deeply grateful, the boy obeyed. Afterward, Jae-hyun closed his eyes and activated his Supreme Recluse Omniscient Eyes. In an instant, he saw Hearing in the basement, relentlessly taking down goblins with her bow. She moved with flawless precision, eliminating them one after another as the battle inside the house was just beginning. Nearby, Deok-soo was crushing goblins with his mace as if possessed, and they took turns killing before running back upstairs. Shortly before, when the chubby boy vanished right before Deok-soo's eyes, he had rushed up the stairs with fierce urgency. From the rear, the group fired arrows as if their lives depended on every shot. Suddenly, two goblins appeared in front of Deok-soo, ready to tear him apart. That's when Byung-ho lost control. He swung his mace with the energy of someone on a total rush, shattering their heads with a single blow. He didn't stop there. He lunged forward, landed in front of Deok-soo, and began wiping out goblins one by one. It seemed as if the strength of 10 elephants ran through his veins. Everyone stared in disbelief. Had he always been this strong? The answer was clear. Since becoming Jae-jung's vassal, Byung-ho seemed to be undergoing a true awakening of power. Jae-jung watched the chaos and felt a wave of relief. For now, everyone was safe. He took a moment to check Byung-ho's status. Level 30, confidence at 55, and loyalty at 88. His awakened skill was teleportation, an A-rank ability capable of changing any battle. He could move anywhere within his line of sight, and not just himself, but others as well. Jae-hyun smiled with pride, convinced that making him his vassal had been an excellent decision. Meanwhile, Byung-ho continued his streak, destroying goblins without giving them a moment to breathe. Dong-hyun, still processing the scene, turned to Kim Gaeon, the boy, with glasses who looked like he was about to faint, and asked if he could keep going. Gaeon nodded with determination. The group prepared for the next assault. Deok-soo asked Hearing if the water tank was ready. She confirmed it just as Byung-ho appeared at the top of the stairs, dragging an entire army of goblins behind him. As soon as he reached the top, the group tipped the massive tank over them. The goblins were instantly soaked, though that wasn't enough to stop them. Then, Jaeon took an extension cord and plugged it into the power source. The hidden wires along the staircase activated, and electricity began to crackle through the water. The low-level goblins, those weak level 6 seconds and 7s, were fried instantly. However, the level 10s resisted. The system notified Jae-hyun that he had gained a massive amount of EXP along with 334,464 won, all deposited directly into his Supreme Wallet. He smiled, noticing he had leveled up and his skills had become even more overwhelming. But then, something changed. A strange pain shot through his body, his heart began to beat violently, and a burning sensation completely took over. Suddenly, a purple shield began to form around him. It expanded rapidly, covering the entire building all the way down to the basement. Every high-level goblin caught inside began to freeze helplessly. The system warned him that a hostile presence had been detected within the shield. Jaehyun smiled. The time had come to show them who was in control. With a simple command, the trapped goblins exploded like balloons. Blood splattered in every direction, staining the walls like a scene from a horror movie. Hundreds of goblins died instantly. On another floor of the building, several goblins stayed grouped together, ready to move forward, unsuspecting of the grim fate awaiting them. Suddenly, an especially large goblin sensed a presence behind him. Turning around, he found himself face to face with a colossal beast, a creature whose very existence commanded terror. He didn't even have time to react. In an instant, the beast lunged, sinking its fangs into him and ending him right then, devouring his flesh like a snack. The scene shifted as the other goblins watched the slaughter, paralyzed with fear. But before they could flee, the beast burst among them. It surged forward without stopping, tearing through them like a lawnmower, shredding bodies with its claws and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Some goblins, as clumsy as they were desperate, tried to attack it from behind. They land weak blows that barely phase it. To the creature, they're nothing but trash. It swats them away, sending them flying. Others, driven by suicidal stupidity, climb onto its back, biting and tearing away chunks of flesh. The beast roars in fury as its jaws tighten and its body shakes. The pain is obvious, but its thought is simple. You bastards. Immediately after, the ground vibrates with another roar. The beast grabs every goblin clinging to its body and tears them apart without mercy. Fragments fly everywhere and blood splatters the area like a scene from a horror movie. Without stopping, it stomps on the remains that are still moving, crushing them into a repulsive mass. When it's over, not a single goblin is left alive. Then, out of nowhere, a system notification appears. The beast has received citizenship. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. Its gigantic figure begins to shrink. The energy dissipates and its form starts to change. Within seconds, the transformation is complete. The beast disappears, and in its place remains a stunning woman. Like a newborn arriving in the world, she is covered in blood and faints, falling unconscious onto the ground. At the same time, Jae-hyun watches everything through his supreme recluse omniscient eye, completely stunned. He can barely mutter, "What was that?" Another system window appears, revealing more information. The young woman's name is Oh Un-yu, and her ability is Teddy Bear. A new notification explains that this ability allows her to transform into a monstrous creature, maxing out her physical strength and regeneration. Jae-hyun can't help but be impressed. Level 33 and an A-rank ability, but the surprises continue. Dongjeon and Hee-jung's trust reaches 50 points, unlocking loyalty, while Deok-su's trust exceeds 30, meeting the requirements to become a vassal. Jae-han smiles to himself and orders the system to register him. Boom! Another vassal joins the group. Deok-su receives the Iron Knight ability, which allows him to summon a halberd along with a full suit of armor made of the same material. Later, Jae-hyun realizes something essential. The higher a vassal's level, the more powerful their awakened abilities become. He decides to review them one by one. The chubby guy, Gorilla Strength, rank C, level 20. Deok-su, Iron Knight, rank B, level 25. Byung-ho, Teleportation, rank A, level 30. He starts reflecting. Since they were registered, it seems the ability rank determines the starting level. However, a question bothers him. Are the ranks assigned at random? He wonders if Byung-ho got an A-rank ability because of his loyalty. But then why did the chubby guy, who has higher loyalty, only get a C rank? Even so, Deok-su managed to get a B rank with 31 points. Confused, he keeps thinking it over. Understanding what factors influence getting better abilities would be extremely useful, especially since he can only register 10 vassals. Choosing someone with high rank potential would be a decisive advantage. Finally, he recognizes an even bigger problem. He has no idea what would happen if he registered a metahuman as a vassal. His thoughts are interrupted by another notification. Metahumans can now move freely between stairs, elevators, and hallways. After taking in the information, Jae-hyun heads to the elevator and uses his ability to watch the girl who is still unconscious. Then he calls the chubby guy, who appears as soon as the doors open. Jae-han explains that there is a woman in the second basement and orders him to bring her up. Meanwhile, his companions tie up the defeated goblins, still trying to process the chaos they just witnessed. Everything suggests those creatures were fleeing from something even worse. Dongjeong in particular is deeply shocked. He realizes he underestimated the overwhelming power of the ability they saw. It seems incredible to him that Jae-hyun, with a simple snap, wiped out all the goblins effortlessly. Later, he recalls past conversations. The chubby guy used to talk about Jae-hyun's divine abilities, even mentioning improbable things like hot water. As he puts the pieces together, he realizes it must all be part of his powers. He also recalls how the chubby man's wife mentioned that Jae-hyun provided all the ingredients for the meal. After a quiet moment of reflection, he concludes that everything is connected to Jae-hyun's abilities. The thought both unsettles and amazes him, wondering why someone so strong, capable of surviving alone, would choose to protect them in this world. His trust in him only grows. Thinking about Byung-ho, he notes how much he's changed since meeting Jae-hyun. As he was always an introvert before, he even acted like a cold-blooded killer for a moment. As he gathers the cables, one thought dominates his mind. Jae-hyun is a terrifyingly powerful being, and his skills are something to be feared. Meanwhile, the chubby guy runs toward the second basement with the mission to rescue the woman. Hyun-jung, still lost in thought, can't help but feel how lucky they are to have been chosen by Jae-hyun. And while all this is happening, Jae-hyun continues to observe everything with his omniscient eye, alert and calculating, silently preparing his next move. The scene then shifts to a flashback. A charming boy is playing with his toy car, turning around full of joy to ask his mother to play with him. In that instant, the same woman who had previously transformed from a beast into a human appears leaning down to play with her son with tenderness and care. The little boy waves his hand happily, but that happiness is shattered in seconds as color drains from the woman's face. She sees something terrifying, horror paralyzes her, and a piercing scream escapes her throat. The boy, still smiling and calling her to play, doesn't notice the danger lurking behind him. 3 bloodthirsty goblins, drooling and ready to eat him alive. A fierce impulse takes over the woman. She must protect her son, and she starts running as fast as she can. But it's already too late. Driven by an insatiable hunger, the goblins aren't willing to let such a delicious meal escape. In the blink of an eye, they tear the boy apart and devour him right in front of her. The woman witnesses her son's brutal death, and something inside her shatters. Immediately after, that terrible nightmare forces her awake. Yoon-ju opens her eyes in terror, drenched in sweat, sitting up in bed with a scream, her chest heaving violently. Jae-hyun is nearby and greets her calmly. He watches her for a moment before asking how she feels. Still disoriented, Yoon-ju holds her head, trying to understand where she is. Jae-hyun extends his hand and introduces himself, saying he's glad to meet her. However, Yoon-ju remains distrustful and has only one question. Was it him who did that work earlier? Jae-hun frowns, confused, not understanding what she means, but she insists. She wants to know if it was him who made the goblins' heads pop like balloons. While Yoonju was unconscious, Jae-hun had used his domain expansion to kill them, making their heads explode. When he offers his hand again, Yoonju steps back with a trembling voice. Now she's sure, it was Jae-hyun who killed them. The discovery makes her even more cautious. Her fear grows because his power is undeniably terrifying. He can wipe out an entire group of goblins in an instant, as if crushing ants under his foot. Yoonju's thoughts grow dark. She wonders if she could have saved her son if she had been as strong as Jae-hyun. Overcome by sadness, she begins to tremble and cry again, cursing her own power and regretting that she awakened too late. If she had done it sooner, perhaps her son would still be alive. Through her tears, she calls out to Jae-hyun, her voice breaking. Jae-hyun, caught off guard, watches her closely. In a desperate tone, Yoonju asks if he can save her son. Deep down, she knows he's gone, but she begs him to avenge him and kill every damn goblin in the world. Thus, another goblin hunter is born. Yoonju sits on the bed crying uncontrollably, her body shaking with sobs. Jae-han stays nearby in silence, observing her overwhelming grief. The room fills with the echo of her crying. He reflects on her tragedy. He's always been a loner and isn't good with people, so he has no idea how to comfort a grieving mother. Then, while she continues to cry, the system sends him an unexpected notification. Yoonju's trust in him has increased significantly. Yoonju keeps repeating how much she misses her son. Jae-han doesn't know how to help, but he understands perfectly that the goblins devoured the little boy. He wonders if there's anything at all, he can do. Then, an idea crosses his mind. He thinks about assigning her a mission with a reward that could revive her son. He knows it's impossible, but he decides to try anyway. He creates a mission for Yoonju, stating that if she kills 1,000 goblins, the reward will be the resurrection of her son. Doing nothing feels worse to him. He prays it works. In this messed up world, anything seems possible, but as soon as he submits the mission, the system surprises him with another notification. He doesn't have enough funds to provide a resurrection reward. The discovery shakes him to his core. If he can manage to gather enough funds, he could revive anyone. His whole body starts to tremble. This changes everything. Jae-hyun finally understands the true potential of his role. He is the system itself, and he could become the god of this world. Still, he needs more money to make it a reality, and the system doesn't specify exactly how much. Despite the uncertainty, he refuses to give up. Meanwhile, Yoonju continues to cry until Jae-hyun calls out to her. He tells her there might be a way to revive her son. She freezes, as if a bullet had just passed through her. She feels a mix of shock and pain, and even suspects he might be playing a cruel joke. She tells him that if this is a prank, he needs to stop now, or she'll never forgive him. Jae-hyun assures her that a way does exist, but it will be extremely difficult. Desperation takes over Yoonju, and she declares she's willing to do anything for him, even becoming his slave. Jae-hyun immediately cuts her off, saying that none of that is necessary. She only needs to do one thing for him, which he will explain later. Later, the scene changes and Jae-hyun introduces Yoonju to Dong-yeon. He greets her with a firm handshake. Yoonju introduces herself as well, though she maintains a serious expression. She asks just one question. Was he the one killing goblins with a baseball bat? She also mentions Hyerin, the girl who used a bow. The accuracy of the description leaves Dong-yeon and Hyerin completely shocked. They have no idea who this woman is or how she knows them. Hyerin asks if they've met before. Trying to lighten the mood, Yoonju raises her hand like a bear claw and acts cute, hinting that they should know her, then playfully asks if they really don't recognize her. Dong-yeon, Hyerin, and Deoksu look at each other in confusion. Yoonju smiles confidently and decides to activate her beast transformation. Gradually, fur begins to sprout across her body. A deep and threatening aura spreads around her until she is completely covered in a thick coat of fur. As soon as the transformation is complete, Hyerin recognizes her and is about to scream. Yoonju, now standing nearly 10 feet tall, rises like a lethal creature ready to crush anyone in her path. They finally realize she is the same beast that blocked them in the basement while relentlessly taking out goblins. Noticing their reaction, Yoonju laughs. She finds the moment amusing, putting a hand to her face and clarifying that, to be exact, she's a bear, not just a beast. She assures them she isn't their enemy. In fact, she's been helping them by killing countless goblins in the basement, even though they never knew it and thought she wanted to kill them too. Finally, Deoksu and Dong-yeon realize she's telling the truth. The beast never attacked them, but instead took out the goblins that were about to end their lives. Dong-yeon approaches with clear joy and says that encounter in the basement wasn't a coincidence. Yoonju nods and declares that goblins are the national enemy, swearing to exterminate them all. Since the goblins' enemies are her friends, another goblin hunter joins the group. As the conversation continues, Jae-hyun arrives from behind, happy that everyone has been introduced, but his expression hardens as he announces something important. There's no time to lose. By tomorrow morning, they must start the plan to save Byung-ho's grandmother. Now that the number of goblins has dropped drastically, it's the perfect time to move forward. Jae-hyun informs the group that Hyunjun won't be able to join the battle due to his fatal injury. Instead, Yoonju will accompany Deoksu and Dongyeon's team to hunt goblins. Hearing the title of Goblin Hunter, Yoonju can't hide her happiness. Jae-hyun gives the final order. Everyone needs to rest. The mission will begin as soon as they wake up at dawn. The group disperses to their rooms, but Jae-hyun pulls Deoksu and Byung-ho aside. The scene shifts again as he leads them into a small room. He then asks calmly, "Do you know why I brought you here?" Both look at each other in complete confusion. Jae-hyun looks at them with a serious face and asks again if they know why he called them there. Deoksu has no idea, though Byung-ho starts to suspect something. He boldly asks if this is about their abilities, and then Jae-hyun flashes a wicked smile and confirms he's right. Both Deoksu and Byung-ho have already unlocked their awakened abilities, and the news leaves them completely shocked. Jae-hyun turns to Byung-ho and reveals his ability is called teleportation. As soon as he hears that word, Byung-ho's face lights up with a huge smile. Next, Jae-hyun looks at Deoksu and informs him that his awakened ability is called Iron Knight. Confusion washes over Deoksu. What exactly does Iron Knight mean? Will he be able to summon a knight? Immediately after, Jae-hyun decides to train them. Both need to master their powers if they want to complete the tasks ahead. He opens the system notification and creates a new mission for the two of them. They must discover their awakened abilities and use them for the first time. The time limit is 1 hour. The reward is a strength increase, and the punishment is sleeping outside. Just as Jae-jun is about to assign them their mission, Deoksu, overflowing with excitement, asks if this means he has finally unlocked his ability and can use it. Jae-jun nods, and the reaction from Deoksu is immediate. He starts jumping around like a child, shouting that he can't wait to use the power of the Iron Knight. The name sounds incredibly cool. Jae-jun then explains that, thanks to that ability, he can summon iron armor along with a hellish halberd. While Deoksu listens and prepares to ask another question, something happens right before their eyes. With a snap, Byung-ho disappears. Deoksu stands frozen in surprise. For a few seconds, silence fills the room. A moment later, Byung-ho reappears a little further away. He's shocked and euphoric, unable to believe it. He thought about teleporting a short distance, and it happened instantly. He clenches his fists and declares that with this power, he can definitely save his grandmother. Meanwhile, the system notifies Jae-jun that Byung-ho's trust in him has increased drastically. Immediately after, Byung-ho bows his head in deep gratitude and promises that from now on, he will believe in Jae-jun and do whatever he says, since thanks to him, he can save his grandmother. But Jae-jun stops him right away, saying he shouldn't celebrate just yet because getting to his grandmother's house right now would be extremely difficult. Disappointment crosses Byung-ho's face. With teleportation, he should be able to go straight there, right? No, Jae-jun explains there's no guarantee he can control his ability well yet. He doesn't even know how far he can travel or how long he can keep doing it without stopping. He must master it first. It wouldn't be a good idea to get stuck halfway, lose consciousness, or end up as prey for the goblins. Byung-ho sighs, a bit discouraged, but understands that Jae-jun is right. He'll have to wait a little longer before rescuing his grandmother. Suddenly, as they're talking, a brilliant flash lights up the space behind them. They both jump and turn around immediately. Before them stands a giant statue wielding an iron axe that looks extremely dangerous. It isn't just any statue, it's Deoksu. He has summoned his Iron Knight. His body is covered in thick, powerful enchanted armor while he holds the colossal axe. Seeing himself like this, Deoksu's confidence in Jae-jun skyrockets. The system notifies Jae-jun that both Deoksu's trust and loyalty have increased drastically. Unable to contain himself, Deoksu begins to dance with joy. A bit later, Jae-jun orders Byung-ho to teleport to the building next door. It will be his first real test. If he manages it easily, it means he's using his power correctly. Byung-ho fixes his gaze on the building, stands still for a few seconds, and makes his move. At the same time, Jae-jun creates another mission. He must teleport there within 3 minutes. The reward will be an increase in his teleportation proficiency. Byung-ho concentrates, with Deoksu cheering him on from behind, boosting his confidence. With a tense face, he visualizes the destination and disappears. An instant later, he successfully appears in the neighboring building. From the window, he waves to Jae-jun, who smiles, seeing that he has achieved a long-distance teleportation. Byung-ho responds with an equally happy gesture. But then, without warning, darkness fills Byung-ho's vision, and he collapses unconscious inside the building. Jae-jun and Deoksu are alarmed. What happened? Jae-jun doesn't waste a second. He uses his summoning ability to bring him back and lays him down to rest. He then checks the system notification. Byung-ho's health is fine, he's just sleeping. Jae-jun deduces that his mana ran out or that his current limit is a short distance. If he exceeds it, his energy drains and he falls unconscious. He explains this to Deoksu and assures him that Byung-ho is perfectly safe. After a little rest, he'll regain consciousness. Afterward, Jae-jun turns to Deoksu and asks him out of nowhere if he likes to exercise. The question confuses him. Why talk about exercise now? The answer comes quickly. Jae-jun assigns him the famous One Punch Man routine, creating a new mission. He must do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, and run 10 kilometers in 10 minutes. The reward is a strength increase, and the punishment is sleeping outdoors. All of this must be done while wearing the armor. Deoksu doesn't hesitate for a second. He starts immediately in the heavy suit, quickly completing the push-ups and the squats. However, he soon begins to pant heavily. Watching from behind, Jae-jun is impressed. Deoksu is finishing the task way too easily. It's likely because he's already an athlete. His stamina is extraordinary. While he reflects, the system sends an unexpected notification. The evaluation process has begun. Jae-jun is puzzled. He's never seen anything like this before. At that moment, Deoksu asks if he wants him to do another quick task. Jae-hyun calmly declines, telling him that's enough for today and he can leave. Deoksu thanks him and departs, just as the system announces that the evaluation is complete. Since Deoksu's strength increased after the mission, Jae-hyun's strength will also grow a bit. The surprise shakes him as he feels his body becoming stronger than before. This is revolutionary information. If his vassals grow stronger, he will too. Everything has changed. The scene then shifts. It's nighttime. Donjan and his group are running desperately while a horde of goblins chases them. Deoksu instantly summons his Iron Knight, and like a true guardian, he stands firm against the threat. One by one, he begins to cut down and wipe out the goblins, but he is alone, so how could he stop them all? Some manage to surround him and lunge toward Byung-ho. However, he is already waiting for them with his bow and arrows. Shot after shot, he eliminates those remaining and prepares for more. The remaining goblins retreat in terror until a gigantic shadow appears behind them. The panic paralyzes them, and tears well up in their eyes. That shadow belongs to the massive bear mummy. Before they can react, the creature tears the goblins apart. Meanwhile, Young-ho's group continues to eliminate them without rest. His companions shout that they will handle holding off the goblins, and that he must go right now to save his grandmother. Byung-ho doesn't hesitate. He leaves them behind and runs toward his destination. In another part of the story, Jae-hyun is quietly at home eating ramen noodles. Between bites, the system notifies him that his citizens have completed the mission and that he has received 132,966 won. He's incredibly surprised. It's the first time he's earned money, thanks to them. He starts to think about it. When Deoksu completed his task, Jae-jung gained strength. When other citizens finished theirs, he received money. It seems the reward is random every time someone finishes a mission. The notifications start to pile up as more citizens succeed. Byung-ho has also completed his task, and the system is currently evaluating all the rewards. Finally, after a few moments, the verdict arrives. He's won the jackpot. As soon as Jae-jung sees the reward, his noodles get stuck in his throat. He's left gaping, completely shocked. The prize is a new feature, skill points. Jae-jung raises an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. Seriously, he's earning skill points now. At this rate, nothing could faze him, not even if the system decided tomorrow that he was pregnant. The scene then shifts, and Byung-ho appears teleporting near his home. His face is deadly serious with a hint of nervousness. He stares intensely at his home. As he walks toward the door, his mind racing, he desperately prays that his grandmother is okay. Immediately after, gathering every bit of courage he has, he runs inside shouting her name and heads straight for her room. Even in his panic, he takes the time to remove his shoes. Man, we love this guy. Back to the story, as soon as he enters, his eyes go wide. His grandmother is still alive, but she's lying unconscious on the floor, terribly weak. Panic takes over Byung-ho as he rushes to her side. Luckily, hearing his frantic voice, the woman slowly opens her eyes. With a thin, trembling voice, she takes his hand, recognizing him instantly. The moment hits him right in the heart. It's overwhelming. Tears pour down like rain, and he cries as hard as he can, sobbing like a newborn. She is his only family. Byung-ho hugs her tightly and continues to cry, overwhelmed with happiness. He stays like that for a long time, mentally thanking Jae-jung over and over, seeing him as a god. To him, Jae-jung has officially become the supreme deity of this apocalypse. Elsewhere, the scene shifts back to Jae-jung, checking a system notification. The message cheerfully informs him that Byung-ho's trust has reached 100%. Now the boy would kill or do literally anything Jae-jung asked. As a result, another vassal slot is unlocked for regeneration. Jae-jung now has 11 slots in total, plus a new system ability. He can level up vassals directly, just like video game characters. This changes everything. Jae-jung is shocked. Can they really level up like that? He cautiously tries to upgrade Byung-ho, but the moment he does, the system coldly informs him that he doesn't have enough money. He needs 100 million won, which is about $70,000. The figure leaves him stunned. It's absurd and ridiculous. He slams his hand down in fury and yells at the system that it's crazy. Honestly, the system is greedier than a fame-hungry influencer. Just then, a strange noise catches his attention. His senses pick up the elevator moving. He immediately activates his omniscient eyes of the supreme recluse, locating two people, a chubby man and a pretty girl standing ominously by the fat guy's door. Both look terrifying and extremely suspicious. To avoid confusion, remember that in the novel, when Jae-jung's domain expanded, it allowed everyone under him to move freely. Back to the story, the man's wife, Ji-won, opens the door after hearing the bell and is taken aback. The suspicious woman greets her warmly, introducing herself as Davin, and points to her brother, Min-ho. They explain they live in apartment 1701. Clearly confused and full of doubt, Ji-won cautiously asks what brings them there. With a trembling voice, Daven bluntly confesses they've come to ask for help. Nervously, she explains she just wants to take a bath. After all that tension, Ji-won is speechless. What on earth, a bath? Still confused, she ends up inviting them in, assuring them it's no trouble at all. As soon as they cross the threshold, Minho, still looking serious, asks where he should put the large box he's carrying. Hee-won is curious until Daven explains it's full of canned food and supplies. She wouldn't be so selfish as to ask for help during tough times without offering something in return, right? As Minho sets the box on the floor, Hee-won tries to say it wasn't necessary, but Daven insists she keep it. She feels that asking for a free bath at a stranger's house would just be strange. Just then, Daven notices all the weapons scattered around the place. Surprised, she asks if they belong to Hee-won and if she's a hunter. The question startles her, and she awkwardly explains that it's complicated, saying the weapons belong to someone else, like her boss. While Hee-won continues her explanation, Jae-hyun stops spying on them. After watching them closely, he concludes that for now, the siblings don't seem like bad people. He decides to speak with them face-to-face before making any final decisions. Suddenly, the system sends him another notification. A red tiger is being hunted. Jae-hyun receives a massive amount of experience points and over 39 trillion won. His stats increase drastically, and he even earns a new skill. The notifications are overwhelming, and he realizes his mistake. He had become far too absorbed in watching the siblings. Meanwhile, absolute chaos reigns outside. Everyone is exhausted and injured, having barely managed to take down a monstrous giant tiger. Yoonju lies unconscious on the ground, covered in blood. It's a total disaster. At that moment, Jae-hyun's domain expansion range increases again, causing an intense surge of pain right in his heart. Faced with this terrible situation, he urgently grants citizenship to everyone, deciding he'll judge whether they are good or bad later. The system notifies him that as the number of citizens reaches a certain limit, everyone unlocks the power of trust. Jae-hyun has no time for celebrations as the injuries worry him deeply. He definitely didn't expect to face a giant tiger in the middle of the jungle. Elsewhere, Baeno teleports at top speed toward the apartment carrying his grandmother. While the others run desperately after him, Deoksu carries the unconscious Yoonju. The situation is incredibly tense, and Jae-hyun can't believe how badly Yoonju is hurt. To make matters worse, the goblins are still chasing them. Just when all seems lost, the power of Gaeun's arrows suddenly increases. The others feel their strength and speed skyrocket as their bodies become lighter. This is all thanks to the power of trust, which boosts the citizens' stats based on how much they trust Jae-hyun. He quickly calculates that the general trust level is over 50%, meaning a 50% increase in their combat abilities, completely changing the game. Byung-ho, who already sees him as a god, receives the biggest stat boost and shouts Jae-hyun's name, fervently thanking him for granting such a powerful buff from a distance. Because of this, Hearing and her friend's loyalty exceeds 30%, making them eligible to be registered as vassals. Jae-hyun wastes no time and converts them instantly, though he notes that Hearing's trust level is exactly 69. Upon their awakening, both unlock incredible abilities, Piercing Arrow for Gaeun and Toxic Mist for Hearing. Gaeun fires her bow and is shocked to see that the arrow seems to have a life of its own. It effortlessly pierces through all the goblins, killing them instantly. Then, Jae-hyun creates a new quest specifically for Hearing. The goal is to kill 10 goblins using her new Toxic Mist skill, with the reward being an increase in the skill's rank. However, Hearing's power is particularly dangerous. It is a deadly poison mist, a B-rank skill capable of harming allies if not carefully controlled. Because of this, Jae-hyun decides to examine the skill first, paying special attention to her 69% trust level before assigning her a special mission. But the main problem remains Yoonju. Jae-hyun immediately activates his Supreme Recluse Omniscient Eyes and desperately scans the entire building for help. After a frantic search, he detects a young girl lying unconscious inside her room. Without a second thought, he starts rushing toward her. Sure, maybe it's partly because she's young, but I'm kidding. The real reason is that she's a healer, the exact piece missing from Jae-hyun's team collection. Soon, he was standing in front of room 2902. He tried the handle, but the door wouldn't budge. From the inside, a heavy iron chain kept it sealed tight. Jae-hyun was strong, but not strong enough to kick it down. Then, he remembered something crucial. He had obtained a new skill called Invisible Hand, which he could summon and move at will. He figured if he mastered this, it would definitely be useful with his future wife at night. Without overthinking it, he decided this was the perfect moment to test out this questionable skill. He closed his eyes, imagined the chain snapping, and suddenly, a sharp pair of mana scissors appeared. He guided them with precision, and the chain was cut effortlessly as if it were made of paper. The door gave way and swung open, and he rushed toward the unconscious girl. But when he saw her up close, horror filled his eyes. Her condition was critical. Her face was sunken and her body was devastated by dehydration. She was dangerously close to death. He urgently tried to wake her, calling her name and shaking her shoulders, but there was no response. Her pale skin, dry eyes, and cracked lips said it all. He had come looking for a healer, but now, who was going to save her? Panic began to set in until he noticed something strange right beside her. There was a bottle of water, yet for some absurd reason, she hadn't even touched it. This wasn't the time for mysteries, though. The priority was saving her. Jae-yoon's clever mind immediately went to work with a brilliant idea. He created a quest just for her. Breathe once, and the reward would be a full recovery. The trick cost him nearly 10 million won, but it worked. The girl let out a faint sigh, and her dehydration vanished instantly. What kind of ridiculously powerful skill was that? Slowly, consciousness returned to the girl. Her vision blurred as she opened her eyes, barely making out Jae-yoon's silhouette leaning over her. Weak and confused, she murmured, asking who he was and how he had entered her room. Jae-yoon calmly introduced himself and explained that he lived in the apartment upstairs. Still disoriented, she asked again in a low voice, trying to process everything. Why was he in her room? Maintaining his politeness, he replied that her condition had been alarming and he had come to help. At first, she thought she was hallucinating, but after a few seconds, reality hit her hard. Someone had actually come to rescue her. Suddenly, emotion overwhelmed her, and she burst into tears. She couldn't believe someone had appeared after so many days of hunger and thirst. Jae-yoon hated to interrupt such a delicate moment, but with a heavy heart, he called her name and apologized quietly. Look, I know this isn't the best time, but I desperately need your help right now. While she cried with relief, he explained that one of his companions was badly injured and needed her attention. However, the more she heard, the more confused she became. What on earth was this guy talking about? How was she supposed to help someone else when she could barely stand after being at death's door? It sounded completely absurd, and to make it even stranger, this stranger expected her to medically treat his friend. Suspicion began to creep in. How did he know she was a nurse? Although Jae-yoon didn't seem dangerous, no one was trustworthy in this forgotten apocalypse. She decided to cautiously play along to see his true intentions and asked calmly where she needed to go and how she could help. Jae-yoon casually asked her to wait a moment while he was busy creating another quest. This time, he designed it so she would heal the injured Yoon-ju. The time limit would be 1 hour, and the reward would be an upgrade to her healing skill level. After finishing, he handed her some dried oranges and told her to eat and rest, promising to bring his friend directly to the room. With that, he turned and left, leaving her speechless again with oranges on the floor and a strange system notification floating before her eyes. Overcome by a sudden panic, she shouted Jae-yoon's name, demanding to know what was going on. She wondered what that message was and who he really was. But Jae-yoon, looking as cool as ever with a devious smile, calmly replied that he would explain it later. Then, he left her there, still stunned, casually reminding her that she was too weak and needed to rest. Once she was alone, she hurriedly gathered the oranges and began to peel them with trembling fingers, her mind racing. Was she dreaming? Had that guy just created a mission right in front of her? Meanwhile, as soon as Jae-yoon returned to his room, a notification informed him that Da-yeon's trust had increased. He wasn't surprised. Just as he suspected, the woman still didn't fully trust him, which made sense. After all, who in their right mind would trust someone who randomly bursts into their room like an apocalyptic version of Santa Claus? He was waiting patiently for his group to arrive when suddenly, an intense and disturbing sensation ran through his body. Something was terribly wrong. Without hesitation, he activated his omniscient eyes of the supreme recluse and immediately spotted a red tiger chasing Yoon-ju and the others. That beast had already injured Yoon-ju before, and now it was back. Everything indicated it was furious. Apparently, it was the mate of the tiger they had killed earlier, and damn, it was coming for revenge. That monstrous red tiger, with claws ready to tear them apart, looked prepared to shred them without question and without showing the slightest mercy. It was a truly enraged tiger widow. To make matters worse, Jae-yoon was stunned to notice there was another red tiger as well. The group was not at all ready for another battle. Their lives hung by a thread. As they ran in desperation, Ga-yoon's foot suddenly slipped and she fell to the ground, seriously injuring her leg. Hae-ryung and Dongjeon panicked instantly, convinced that this was the end. Ga-yoon tried to get up, but her injury failed her. Heartbroken, Hae-ryung watched as the one she considered a little sister suffered, feeling helpless since they couldn't escape. Then, the red tiger opened its massive mouth, large enough to swallow a family-sized pizza, and prepared to devour her in a single bite. In that exact second, Ga-yoon sadly accepted her fate. But just as the tiger was about to sink its teeth into her, she mysteriously vanished, leaving behind only a faint purple glow. The tiger was paralyzed, completely confused, as if wondering what on earth had just happened. As for Ga-yoon, she suddenly appeared in front of Jae-yoon, panting in terror, injured but alive. It was a close call. If she hadn't been a vassal, she would have been the tiger's lunch by now. Even so, that unexpected teleportation bought them precious time to escape from the enraged beast, if only temporarily. Immediately after, Byung-ho materialized in front of Jae-hyun carrying his grandmother, and the system informed him that a new citizen was ready to be registered. Jae-hyun accepted without wasting time and granted her citizenship, though the danger was far from over. The Red Tiger Widow was approaching again, more furious and hungry than before. Suddenly, a brilliant idea crossed Jae-hyun's mind. It was time to test the true limit of his invisible hands of pleasure. While the Tiger Widow charged to crush them, Dongjin realized that if anyone was going to survive, someone would have to sacrifice themselves. Without hesitation, he stopped running, activated his baseball pitching skill, and fired a ball charged with mana at high speed toward the beast. It was useless. The tiger dodged it easily, leaping through the air ready to tear him apart. Hairung screamed in panic, but Dongjun had already accepted his fate. Knowing he couldn't escape for long, he ran as fast as he could to draw the monster's full attention. As expected, the tiger caught up with him easily. Its fangs were seconds away from piercing his skin. But then something shocking happened. A massive pair of aura scissors appeared out of nowhere and snapped shut around the tiger's neck, stunning Dong Yong and everyone there. A moment later, a mysterious hand of energy squeezed the beast's throat mercilessly, lifting it into the air as the Tiger Widow struggled desperately to breathe. It thrashed violently, trying to break free, but there was no escape. Dong Yong stood frozen, his eyes wide, unable to grasp what on earth had just happened. He was certain he was a goner, yet he was miraculously still in one piece. The others rushed over to him. But at that exact moment, Hai-Rin received an unexpected system notification that shook her even more. Watching from a wider perspective, Jae-jung calmly observed the entire scene from above. He muttered that with a skill like this, he didn't even need to hunt monsters himself. Plus, if Hai-Rin landed the final blow, he would get 4 times the tiger's loot. With the mission clear, Hai-Rin drew her bow, her eyes sharp with determination. While the tiger was barely clinging to life, she took aim and fired an effortless shot, taking it down instantly. The system immediately notified Jae-jung that after defeating a level 28 Red Widow Tiger, he had earned over 63 million won. Massive amounts of experience points were gained, and the party's trust and loyalty had increased significantly. Thanks to that boost, Dong Yong's loyalty finally passed the threshold, bringing a satisfied smile to Jae-jung's face as he officially became one of his valuable vassals. The scene then shifts, showing De Yong actively healing Yoonju. Jae-jung saw it with his own eyes. The wounds vanished as if by magic, leaving him completely surprised. Later, he approached Dong Yong and asked exactly what had happened and how they ended up running into those terrifying red tigers. With a heavy expression, Dong Yong explained that they found them at Byung-ho's grandmother's house, where it seemed they had taken over the territory. Back to the main point, Jae-jung began putting the pieces together and understood why something had felt off earlier. There were no goblins in the area, and now it all made sense. It was because of the tigers. If the goblins had controlled the area, Byung-ho's grandmother would have been gone a long time ago. Did that mean the tigers were protecting her? Could they have been her pets? Leaving that mystery for later, Jae-jung finally spent 73,312 won to provide Dae-young's quest reward. At the same time, Da-young finished fully healing Yoonju. After also checking on the grandmother, she was about to say something when the chubby guy stepped forward awkwardly and asked if, even though it might not be the best time, they really had to keep meeting in that tiny, suffocating room. He was right. They couldn't stay cramped up in there forever. Jae-jung calmed them down, assuring them he'd already thought of that and had a plan. Upon hearing this, their faces lit up. He confidently explained that room 2000-9001 was completely empty, and that he would provide electricity and everything else needed. Anyone who wanted to move in could do so without issue. He then turned to Dabin to add that rooms 201 and 202 were also available. Those rooms would have power too, so she could tell the other survivors they were free to use the showers and bathrooms. However, for some reason the duo seemed strangely sad. Jae-jung caught the vibe instantly and understood why. With a sly smile, he remarked that if they wanted, they could even have their own private room while the others shared the rest. However, they first had to meet a small condition. The duo was completely stunned. Maintaining his dark and intimidating aura, Jae-jung clearly explained the terms. They just had to deliver a message. It was simple but tempting. Whoever killed 100 goblins the fastest would get an entire room, fully equipped with everything. Unlimited electricity, water, food, literally everything for a comfortable life. Just 100 miserable goblins. Easy, man. The legendary Goblin Slayer would be proud. Jae-jung coldly added that their only job was to bring people from all over to register them as citizens, and that all they had to do was kill those 100 goblins. In the end, he was following in Lloyd's footsteps, skillfully manipulating everyone. With a crooked smile, he finalized the new mission: kill 100 goblins and claim unlimited supplies. Meanwhile, the scene takes a sharp turn. A boy in a red jacket runs for his life, pursued by a horde of goblins, fighting with everything he has to escape. Just as he is on the verge of being caught, he almost miraculously lunges toward an open door and slides across the floor, saving himself by a hair. The goblins try to follow him, but the narrow entrance holds them back. Right on the other side, his teammates are waiting patiently with weapons in hand, ready to finish them off. The truth immediately comes to light. The poor boy in the red jacket was nothing more than bait. Thanks to this trick, which was as low as it was effective, the group exterminates the goblins without effort, turning the scene into a one-sided massacre. At the front is the complete jerk whom the narrator decided to call Idiot Number 1. With a boastful air, he throws his spear and finishes off the last goblin, showing off in front of everyone. But the boy in the red jacket is far from celebrating. He's the only one risking his neck while the others rack up easy kills, so he bitterly protests the injustice of always being the bait. The idiot snaps upon hearing this, and with a cold tone, he belittles him as a pathetic loser, claiming that without him, the boy would die like a dog. He even orders him to behave like an obedient pet, or he'll end up as goblin food. Tension rises so quickly that the boy has no choice but to apologize. The scene then changes. The idiot, inflated with pride after bragging about killing 100 goblins, goes to collect the promised reward. However, disappointment hits him head-on. Davin has already given the prize to the first team to complete the challenge, and here comes the unexpected twist. The first to achieve it was none other than Davin's brother, who decided to give the promised room to an elderly couple. The news doesn't sit well with the idiot. Furious, he starts shouting about how unfair the situation is. Davin's brother stays calm and explains that Jae-hyun has prepared a special arrangement for his team. They must go up to the 30th floor to receive their reward. Although rage consumes him, he has no choice but to accept and head that way. During the journey, the idiot wears a disgusting mocking smile as he questions why Davin respects Jae-hyun so much. It seems absurd to him. He wonders if they really see him as a god, and continues to mock him without hesitation, sarcastically calling him the leader of a ridiculous cult. Further along the way, the boy in the red jacket, whose real name is Sun Min, disagrees. He cautiously points out that Jae-hyun is helping and protecting them, so speaking ill of him isn't exactly smart, especially when everyone wants to stay on good terms with him. The idiot stares at him coldly. He doesn't like that idea at all, and his gaze makes it clear without words that the conversation isn't over. The elevator doors open slowly on the 30th floor. Still fuming, the idiot whispers to Sun Min that they'll pick this up later, but they've barely stepped out when Jae-hyun approaches calmly. His aura is chilling, with one hand resting casually in his pocket, and his eyes, cold as ice, pierce everyone. The entire team falls silent instantly, crushed by his presence. The idiot pulls himself together as best he can and introduces himself politely, trying to ease the tension. Jae-hyun shakes his hand with total indifference and calmly congratulates him on his unusual use of the barrier and his clever hunting strategies. The idiot freezes and nervously asks how on earth he knows that. Jae-hyun doesn't even deign to answer. He gets straight to the point. From now on, apartments 1301 and 1502 will have electricity, water, and gas. The idiot, still suspicious, asks how that's possible. The answer comes serenely: they killed 100 goblins, so they've earned it. Then, without any transition, a deeply unsettling smile begins to form on Jae-hyun's face. In a freezing voice, he mentions the mockery the idiot made earlier, specifically that comment about being a cult leader. He makes it clear that he has no interest in being treated like a god or playing such a ridiculous role. The group stands frozen and speechless, trapped between fear and confusion. How on earth did Jae-hyun hear what they said inside the elevator? Are there cameras everywhere? With an unsettling smile, Jae-hyun suddenly changes the subject and casually mentions that he actually has a small favor to ask of them. The scene shifts drastically, revealing exactly what favor Jae-hyun had asked of Jae. He and his group were running for their lives with a pack of massive, terrifying orcs right on their heels. Each stride from those creatures made the ground vibrate violently. Out of breath, Geop felt terror deep in his bones. Suddenly, they made a sharp turn and dashed into a narrow alley, just as planned. Waiting for them at the corner was Dong Gyeon, clutching his spear with determination. The narrow passage restricted the orcs' movement, leaving them stuck for a moment exactly as they had anticipated. Dong Gyeon's throwing skill had reached rank B, allowing him to throw larger objects with 5 times more damage. Without holding back, he threw the spear with all his might, and it shot forward with brutal speed. It struck the first orc and brought it down instantly. The second one charged furiously, swinging its massive club, but before it could reach Dong Gyeon, a lethal arrow pierced its forehead, killing it on the spot. The perfect shot was the work of Jering. The last orc barely had time to react before Dong Gyeon finished it off with another devastating throw. With the threat eliminated, the group completed their mission to exterminate 100 orcs, and Jae-hyun immediately received over 32 billion won. Not far away, a family of 3 watched the scene, paralyzed with horror. Dong Gyeon gave them a reassuring smile and carefully led them toward Jae-hyun's base. As he saw them approaching, Jae-hyun received a system alert. An unknown object was trying to enter. Almost at the same time, another notification appeared, indicating that people eligible for citizenship had arrived. The system asked him directly if he wanted to grant it to the newcomers. After thinking for a moment, he accepted. That decision brought the total number of citizens to 200 and activated a new skill. It was tax collection. Thanks to this, Jae-hyun could obtain 10% of the citizens' money without affecting their actual wealth, though he had to wait 30 days to use it again. He immediately understood the potential of this advantage. He could recover the funds he had distributed. Even so, gathering the full amount would take nearly 10 months. With the urgency of rescuing his parents weighing on him, he decided that Dong Gyeon's team should head to the Nambu Myeongdong neighborhood without delay. To speed up the plan, he chose to provide 30% of the funds in advance, treating it as a necessary investment. Later on, a new notification pops up. The housing declaration skill has become a major benefit for the